All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Rough Sketch to Final Draft, the show that we talk about things from the rough sketch of life and the humble nature of us working towards a final draft in life, which is always a thing of contention sometimes in individuals' lives because we are working towards something that we may never get a chance to achieve in one lifetime. How we will be remembered and how we want to be remembered will be left into those hands of those behind us. And I'm visited today by an amazing guest. I have the incredible Michelle here today, and we're going to be talking about a fantastic topic, which is related to the intro that I just gave about the idea of how we'll be remembered and what the kind of thoughts that we have about ourselves during our lives. We are talking about trauma to transformation and continuing on this fantastic topic. And I have such an amazing guest with me today to go over this journey and this piece of healing that is necessary for us all to reflect on. So I'm going to pass it over to my esteemed, amazing guest today for her to allow the audience to know who she is and more about her with her background. So Michelle, please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Gill, aka the Grief Curator. I'm an author and speaker, normalizing conversations around grief and loss, mental health advocacy, and disability awareness. And I help folks in all ways of loss and grief, but especially those who have lost a loved one within the last 6 months to a year. Navigating that really rough patch when you first lose someone. So really excited, honored, and humbled to be on the podcast today, Adam. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you as well, most definitely. I would certainly say that jumping into the fact of dealing with the grief and the loss that we've gone through as a world and as a society within the past several years has been impactful to us all. I don't think there's a man, woman, or child across this entire world that hasn't been affected by it. In the truest sense, it's one of the reasons why the inception time for coaching and healing has genuinely become such a passion, I'm sure, of yours. Can you go into a little bit about what it is that kind of was the inception about what got you into wanting to delve into this into a deeper way at this particular point in time in your life?
Well, and heads up, this is going to be an emotional ride. So in 2018, my father passed away. He was 94. And at that age, you would think that I was ready. I thought I was ready. He had been in and out of the hospital. They had told us to prepare ourselves. And I was like, I'm prepared. I know, But when it happened, the shock and the grief and the depression were astronomical. And as I tell my grieving community so often, there is no guidebook for grief. It's so personal, like a fingerprint. And I had no idea how I was going to respond and how I did respond. The great thing is that there are people who have walked and are continuing to walk this path, and they are there to lend a hand. And it was probably after a year I realized I needed some extra help. I went back to therapy, and in the course of working through things, I realized this is something that I want to do. Because I saw so many people in the grief groups that I became a part of, and in my other friends who were also going through things. Thank goodness this didn't happen to me because I have a very amazing friend community. But a lot of people, when they lose someone, there is no one, and they're immediately told that, oh, it's been a year or it's been 6 months. It's time to move on. They're dead. Terrible things to say to someone who is grieving. And I kept seeing this and I thought, I need to share. I need to create a truly safe space where people can feel like, oh, my grief matters. I'm heard. I'm seen. I'm given the space and the permission to grieve, to really mourn this person, and to learn better how to, one, grieve in healthy ways, but also to stand up for themselves to people who are like, well, you should get over it by now. So that's what's really got me into it, was my own loss, and then just seeing around me how people weren't supported. Yeah.
It's beautiful. The truest sense about the grief being a fingerprint. That's just fantastic. That's it's a beautiful way to actually encapsulate the perfection of the idea of literally to think about the grieving process as something that is so unique. That is literally something that we each individually go through. Even if all of us lost a loved one, how we go about that is going to be absolutely as unique as a fingerprint. That's just a fantastic, beautiful thought. In the truest sense, what are some of the guidelines that you end up coaching individuals through in that beautiful process? And of course, sorry for your loss. And that's I'm
Thank you.
taken aback by that. What are some of the
It's been 5 years, and it's still rough. And that's what I tell people, that there is no timeline. It doesn't matter. I have friends, I have a particular friend who had lost his brother like 35 years ago. And obviously grief evolves over time. It's not going to be as rough and as suffocating as it is the first 6 months to a year. However, 35 years later, my friend was in a store and he heard a song come on the radio in the store, and he just started sobbing because that song reminded him of his brother. And that's what I tell people, that do not feel ashamed, number one, of your tears. Unfortunately, especially in the West, there is a taboo and a stigma around crying in general, but especially when it comes to grief. And so I tell them, your grief journey is your grief journey. No one has the right to tell you how you should walk it. And it doesn't matter how long it's been. And it doesn't matter who it was that you lost. I went through this in, wow, when did she pass? 22. I believe she passed in 22. Gosh, it's been a year. I had a friend, dear friend, that passed away much too soon of cancer. And here I am in the grief space, holding space for the grieving community. And when I lost her, that week after, I was depressed. I was easily irritated. I was tired. I was sleeping a lot. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Am I coming down with something? No, it was grief. But because she was my friend and not a parent or a sibling or a spouse she was a friend. And even that type of relationship, it's like, why are you so upset? I mean, it's not like she was related to you. Oh my God, no, but she was a dear friend and had brought so much light and joy to everyone. She was just one of those people, that just everybody loved her. And so I hold space for that as well. It's like, it doesn't matter who it was. You're grieving and your grief is valid. So I tell them that first, that your grief is valid and it matters. And I am just here as a guide, not a guru, not somebody who's going to tell you this is how it should be done. Because there is no proper way that it should be done. And just to hold space for them to experience everything, because grief is complicated. There's anger, there's sorrow, there's moments of joy, which a lot of grievers feel guilty about. So just holding space and giving them the permission, if they feel they need it, to feel everything is where we begin.
I love that. Being able to actually genuinely have a safe environment where they feel respected, even as a young child. When they're upset about something, it's usually just dismissal in the regard. And this is across the board, and the fact that we've all experienced this in some sense, that get over it, you're a child, or something else to that effect, that actually compounds the issues. We now have too much literature and too much science on these types of things. Like, that was never the right idea. It denies their reality. It's not allowing them to accept where they're at, even if it is something that is imaginary, even if it was, to understand and walk them through in a respectful manner to get them from A to Z in the process of understanding where there might have been misguided thoughts. And I think one of the things that, as you were sharing there, came up for me is the fact of there is no one right way. That's powerful for the audience to be able to listen to. Any one of your followers and anyone that's ever going to be able to fall upon this podcast or YouTube channel recording in the future. And again, I do this whenever there's an episode. If you go back to all of them, you can always hold me accountable to all of these. I'm graced with this amazing guest. Her name is Michelle. If you're just popping in right now, bless you. You found this for a reason. If you did find this, there's no coincidences in this universe. If you're a part of this energy that's falling onto this episode, then it was for a reason. There's a synchronicity, there's an alignment, there's something here to get from this episode. This amazing woman, Michelle, is an incredible healer. Check out her content. All that links and everything else like that will be in the description just down below. So that's just something that I usually always just kind of keep going throughout these conversations. But the thing of it is that to get back to the topic at hand, is that even with the fact of there is no correct way to grieve, that takes the pressure off. Isn't that just loving even on its own, in the sense that I'm so grateful that you have that perception, because it really just does create the safe space, as you're mentioning. There's no one road to success. So how could there be only one way to properly grieve, right? So I think that's beautiful. Where is it that you found, if we can transition again into a kind of deeper dive with this, where is it that you found the strength to be able to be there and create this safe space for others, having gone through it yourself? It's quite the courageous and amazing transition, as we're talking about, from trauma to transformation. And here you are now, being this bright, beautiful light, helping others through their transformational journey. Kind of go into that.
Oh, well, it's something that I constantly check in with myself on, because it has only been 5 years, and it has already been 5 years. And there was, I generally don't do one-on-ones, or, I generally don't do those in the month of July, because that's when he passed. And I just check in with myself, because, so for instance, this year, both June and July were so rough because of Father's Day. And then, of course, July was his death anniversary. And there were other things going on in my life at the time as well. Things that I was having to hold space for myself for, but also hold space for family members. And when that happens, the potential for emotional and psychological overload is very high. So first of all, I prioritize myself, because I can't help anyone if I am in the depths of my own grief or going through something. However, I think this is a thing. I'm not the only one. I've talked to other grief and death doulas. I've talked to other people in the grief space. I've talked to therapists. There is something within us. And I think part of it is all the ones I've met are highly empathetic, as I am. And we just want this incredible pain, this incredible experience to mean something. And we want to take that and use what we've learned to provide a light for those, so that those who come behind us don't have to flounder like we did. And it's why it's so important. And it's why I follow so many people within the grieving community. There's not enough of us. There's so much space in this grief space for people to reach out a hand and offer healing and offer those safe environments where those out there, one of the things that I've realized just within the last couple of years is, I'm sure you've heard of food deserts. These are
Oh, yeah.
places that don't have access to healthy organic food and things like that. Well, there's also psychological deserts where people do not have access, or there's a limited amount of access to mental health care. and and grief is part of that. And so many people, like I said at the beginning, experience this lack within their own community or with their own family and friend circle. It's why my memoir, which hopefully comes out and by the end of this year, is called "Don't Tell Me to Get Over It," because so many people, that's what they hear. It's time to get over it. And one of the other ways that I address this is when I hold space, I also teach people this is how to hold space. And that concept comes from the author Heather Plett. And she talks about holding space and what that means. And to paraphrase, it means to be with someone and to listen to them and truly see them without judgment. Without judgment. And that's why I always say that the grief journey is so personal. You cannot judge another person's grief journey. Now, if they are heading into a direction where the expression is heading into unhealthy areas, you can still hold space and guide them back to be like, maybe would you think about trying this instead? There definitely is a place for that. But in general, most people just want somebody to listen, to not even say anything. And I do this even within my friend circle. If somebody comes to me or is going through a tough time, I've learned to say, what do you want from me? Do you want me to just listen? Do you need a hug? Or do you want advice? And I leave the choice up to them. And always, always without judgment. Because we can't know what's going on inside or what their relationship was like. So just to hold space. You start there.
So many things that come up there. I know that everyone who's getting a chance to listen to this is benefiting. I think that the language of grief, even in the coaching sphere, as well as it is within the grieving sphere, within the life-changing motivational sphere, whatever it is, taking the time to understand and to decode, to become a translator for that individual's internal love language, their inner language that they speak with themselves, whatever that is, whatever culture they came from. And that could also even just be the household culture, that literally how the mother and father, the parental units in that regard, the dynamic, perhaps they were adopted, whatever it was, there's a language that was taught there on how they communicate, how they deal with pain, how they deal with shame, how they deal with aggression, and also how they deal with failure and also success. In the household, were good grades rewarded? Were they shamed? Were they just expected? Were they ignored? Was bad behavior rewarded? Was it shamed? Was it chastised? Was there punishment in some sort of a visceral way? This is language. This is absolute language. So I'm absolutely with you in the sense of just adding additional flavor for the audience to listen to understand that there's many forms to understand someone's language, and to sit on that bench with them while they're grieving, side by side, and just look over the edge of the cliff with them and just sit there. There's no judgment. They're having thoughts. Though the only way that we can ever help, ever assist in that regard is legitimately to understand their perspective from their language, from their internal processes, and then we can share with them, and they'll feel like they're finally being seen, truly seen, and they're finally being heard. And then whatever it is that you're actually going to share with them is really going to be that transformation in that truest sense, and something that I hold near and dear in any of this coaching sphere, in any regard, is that we cannot change others. Well, so then the question is, well, then why would you even get into these spheres? Because people can change themselves. And just by holding that space, which is what you do so beautifully with your wonderful light, Michelle, is by just holding that space, it allows them to contemplate and then to chew and then to digest, let it marinate maybe a little bit, and then they're thinking about doing the changes, right? And then if you're offering them with a hug, by the way, I would take the hug. Then we can, move forward. So, and I think that's a beautiful process. Wow. And I think even the author that you brought up was a good reference. What are some other good references that you've gotten a chance to study and look into that are good guiding lights, even just for people's leisure, expose? What would you recommend for some other good literature?
So many. So, oh my gosh. I definitely will begin by saying on my website, I do have a spot where I list books that I recommend with a link that I have found helpful for myself. I need to update it because I've also recently added children's books to that list. Dear friend of mine lost both a young nephew, and her father within the space of like 2 months. And her niece was having a difficult time. So when I went to her father's wake, actually, I brought several of those children's books with me, and I said, "Take these, read them to her, see if they help." Because, like you had said, you know, you have to hold space for children as well, and do it in such a way that you're guiding them, that you're helping them learn healthy ways of expressing their emotion and their grief. Kind of to take a step back, when you said that, I immediately thought, we truly teach children by what we do. It's that whole thing of don't do as I do as I say, but that's not how it works. It works by children observe, and some of them you can actually see it.
Yeah.
I know I was one of those kids that I was just very observant. I was just quiet and I was just looking, and you see the kid, they do that and they pick that stuff up. So if you are having a hard time with your grief and suppressing it and ignoring it, your child will learn to do that as well. That's why self-awareness and self-healing is so very important. And also, to your point, that's what we do. We hold space. An amazing therapist and an amazing coach is not going to tell you how to heal. They will just listen, and then you figure it out, because we know it's in there. We just need someone to give us permission to dig deep and to be a safe space that we can grab onto when things get overwhelming, because that does happen. So, but I will say, back to your question about who, definitely have to recommend David Kessler. He worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was the author of On Death and Dying, which, as I've mentioned to my grief community, that book was phenomenal for those who are actively dying, for those who are in hospice, not for the people left behind. That's not what it was meant for. And so David Kessler has since written other books for those of us who are left behind. So I highly recommend him. Of course, he's on Instagram, he's on all the social media. So definitely go and follow him. He always hosts really incredible workshops and things like that. So definitely check him out. Another one is Megan Devine. And actually, I was recently reading her book. It's called It's Okay that you're not okay meeting grief and loss in a culture that doesn't understand. I highly recommend her.
Love
She's
that.
phenomenal. She's also on all the socials, so definitely follow her. And yeah, just if you go to my website, you can see all the books that I recommend that I have found helpful, because not all of them are. Not all of them are helpful. And again,
Hmm.
everybody's grief journey is different. So yeah. And of course,
Quite
check out
true.
my book when it comes
Quite
out
true.
at the end of the year. Although mine is
Absolutely.
more
Yep.
about my grief journey. So
Yes. There we go.
yeah.
There we go. That's where I was leading. I wanted to get to the fact of that, and in the truest sense, right? Yeah. And for all of us out there, because we do grieve differently and because we heal
Mm-hmm.
differently, in that truest sense, we
Mm-hmm.
can all get the same exact cut, but someone's going to heal differently because of their genetics, and that's just something that goes. The genetics is also in the
Mm-hmm.
healing process.
Yeah.
Is that someone might heal from an autobiography or a life coaching
Mm-hmm.
style book or a children's book at whatever age and whatever development. These are resources, folks.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're talking about. There's so many different styles and
Mm-hmm.
genres, and there's a cornucopia of the
Mm-hmm.
industry of healing that can benefit us in all different
Mm-hmm.
ways and shapes and sizes. Again, just to quote something that is
Mm-hmm.
simple for the mind to digest. You read a book once, you saw it the way you did. You read it 2 times, 3
Mm-hmm.
times, 4 times, it changes. Not because the book changed, right? Harry and Hermione weren't different in the different part of the book, right? Aragorn
Right.
really still did slay the dragon, right? Smaug was still there. You know, Hamlet hasn't changed since Shakespeare wrote it. The thing is that we
Mm-hmm.
change as a reader,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I wanted to have the opportunity to ask that good question to you, because
Mm-hmm.
I know you're a fantastic reference. And just so everyone understands, I found Michelle through Instagram, and her content is so authentic and so genuine. It inspired me to want to reach out to her in the first place.
Thank
So
you.
you are absolutely an authentic soul, and you are absolutely someone that drew me in. So as individuals get a chance to
Mm-hmm.
hear more about you, I just, like I said, since I first got a chance to chat with you through Instagram, I've been honored and grateful for this opportunity, because I know that you have a healing soul and that you're going to continue healing hundreds of individuals' lives. So um, if I ask these questions, it's of course just to let the audience know how well versed you are and where you are. And I did check out your website. I saw that you did recommend books, so I thought, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask her about that on the episode, so she gets a chance to share. Um, um, so in that sense, transitioning still into this transformational process in the
Mm-hmm.
grieving stages. What are some of the grieving stages for us in the community, and us who have been working on individuals and working with groups and working on one-on-ones and so on and so forth? It might be a little bit more, well known to us, but someone who might be finding us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts today,
Mm-hmm.
a week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, depending on if the world doesn't burn down. What are some of the steps that we find ourselves and that we meet people at? Where just for the benefit of the audience, just kind of walk through some of those that are more, I guess, common for people to
Mm-hmm.
understand if they're there.
Well, although Kubler-Ross wrote on death and dying for those actively dying, the 5 stages of grief are a great place to begin.
God.
They are denial, acceptance. I'm not doing them in order because I can't remember them in order. Denial, acceptance,
All right.
anger, bargaining. The last one is acceptance, actually, is where you accept it, but I can't remember what the 5th one is. But that is a great place to begin. However,
Yeah.
for those left behind, there is no rhyme or reason to the stages. They are not linear. You will go through all 5 in a week. You could be stuck on, and stuck is probably not the right word, but you can find yourself just in anger for quite a while, and then it might move to denial. There's no rhyme or reason, and that is okay. That's okay. That's how this works. Grief, and this is why I chose this tagline for what I do. Grief is not a problem to be fixed. It's love with nowhere to go. Because I view love, it's a choice. Love is a choice. And it's energy. So I don't really see it as an emotion. It's a choice that we make, and we make it every day. But it's also energy, and where is that energy going to go? And your person is no longer here physically. Now, for me personally, I believe that the soul is immortal. Like the soul goes on. That's my personal belief. And so I take that, and I talk to my dad every day. And I feel him. I feel him around this property where I grew up. I know that he's still watching out for me. I believe that with all my heart and soul, and I feel it. I feel his energy. And
I'm here. I'm with you.
That might not be how someone else deals with grief or feels, and that's okay as well. But what a beautiful way to look at it. That all this love that I had for my dad, so much. He was an incredible man. Every time I meet somebody new, I always think, I wish you could have met him. He packed so many lifetimes into those 94 years. And not all of it was good. So, yeah, I take that love, that energy. And that's part of going back to why you asked, how do I do this? I take all of that love and I push that out into my grieving community. I take all that love that I have for him that's still there. And this is why grief is not a problem to be fixed. It never goes away. And I know for some people that sounds, oh my God, that sounds very traumatic. That sounds terrible. You're always going to have grief. You're always going to grieve. Yeah, because I'm always going to love. My love hasn't gone away. Just the physical presence of the person I loved is gone. And man, I could talk a whole other hour just about that. But I will say this, that's what you do with your grief. And one of the things I tell my grieving community is, that's why I say, lean into your grief. Don't ignore it. Don't run away. We all do it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Because the human brain and the human heart was not meant to carry this incredibly heavy burden. Number one, we weren't created to carry it alone. That's why I have a grieving community. I encourage that. You've got to have a community. You have to have a support system. And then once you're ready, and only once you're ready, and you alone know when that is, you will know. You will know. I just knew at some point, this is what I'm meant to do. And I'm ready. You take that love and you pour it out on those who need it, who weren't as blessed and lucky as you were to have such an incredible person. I'm very conscious of this. Now, my father was not a perfect person. He was human. And he was not always a perfect parent, but he loved me. He loved me. And not everybody has that. Not everybody has that. So I take that and I pour that into them, and I hold space for them, and I tell them, even if your relationship with your person was less than perfect, even if it was horrid and abusive, you can still hold space for grief, because the grief still exists. Even if the only grief you feel in this moment or that you recognize is the grief that that person was not who you needed them to be. That is a legitimate grief, especially if it was a parent.
That's
You
huge.
deserved to have a loving parent who held space for you. You did not deserve, and it was not your fault, if you had a parent who was abusive or neglectful or hateful or narcissistic. You are a child. All children deserve to have parents who love them unconditionally. It's just that as human beings, we are very flawed. And we all come with intergenerational wounds, which is why I'm so glad that you mentioned, Adam, that whole thing about genetics and all of that. I found it very interesting that you talked about even if you're adopted, because I am adopted. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. My father loved me as if he were blood related, and all those intergenerational wounds that he carried and that my mother carries, it doesn't matter. They still get passed on. So I just wanted to say that to anyone who's listening right now. I am holding space for you. And I am sending you so much love, truly, because I have so much more to give now because my father is gone.
Such an incredible.
I'm just going to take a breath here.
I'm just going to let the
and
audience
hold space.
Yep. Breathe. Yep. Hold space for you, love. That's incredible. And for everyone who's listening in, I just, as we sit here and have a moment and just let that sit in a safe space. Anyone that's listening, I'm sure that they're all feeling that. And this woman has so much love to give. Resonate with it. Allow it to permeate you in whichever way that it needs to, through your soul, through your mind, through the grief that you might be thinking about. It's all relative. It must relate to your journey in one way or another. And I think that really, as a takeaway, even for the beauty of all that you just shared, the fact of literally understanding and giving a terminology to the definition of what grief is that it's love that has nowhere to go. That's a beautiful takeaway. That is maybe one of the most loving interpretations in the kaleidoscope of ways that I've ever heard grief ever explained to me in a seminar, in a one-on-one session, in a book. That is maybe one of the most loving definitions I've ever been provided. And I'm sure that this audience is benefiting from understanding that as well. So just let that sink in, everybody. But if you ever find yourself feeling grief, smile and understand that it's literally love that just simply has nowhere to go. It's nothing to hide from, something to run from, something to feel bad or guilty about. It's literally love, like a little puppy sitting somewhere wanting to snuggle someone, but having no one to snuggle. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do my best to make the audience a little bit more of a smile now, because we're hitting on some heavy here. So I'm gonna put some smiles on some people's faces and lift their hearts right now. A little puppy called love, and it wants to snuggle somebody. That's just amazing. And I'm gonna say it now and for all time because it'll be on the recording. Your father must have been absolutely an incredible human soul to have raised such an amazing woman who now is here changing the lives of so many. God bless your father, wherever he may be. That's incredible. What a genuine share. Thank you for that, Michelle. Well,
thank you for allowing me to share it.
Absolutely. You're the star of the show. I'm just the Johnny Carson. That's it. I'm just and humble audience. Johnny Carson got me beat. I'm nobody. I mean, this is just a humble start. So,
you are definitely
let's keep
somebody. You are not nobody.
Well, many thanks. She said it, audience. She said it. Love you. Sending you love and light, Michelle. Love you. Well, let's transition a little bit. Let's keep moving forward with the transformation side of things. Now that we've kind of come up to a particular great milestone, this beautiful conversation that I knew that we were going to have. And again, folks, none of these episodes are ever scripted. We hop on a call and we shoot from the heart. These are the amazing conversations that I have had with these incredible individuals. Michelle and I had a conversation for about 10 minutes before we hopped on the call, maybe not even that. And here we are sharing our absolute hearts together. So I hope that you're all learning and loving and benefiting, as I know that you all are. So let's transition into the transformation aspect of this. And maybe share something that you've seen. Obviously, no names need to be mentioned, but something that you've seen as a beautiful transformation from someone's process that really solidified the fact that you know that what you're doing really has a pathway that people really can begin to journey upon, and that really does bear the fruits of the healing process. So we both work in that healing sphere. So the forum is yours. Have at it.
I will say this, and yes, no names. So a lot of what I do primarily on the Clubhouse app. Now, if you are not familiar with the Clubhouse app, Clubhouse is a social audio app where you can hop on. It's mostly on your phone. There is a third-party app you can use called Club Deck, where you can listen. And I will often share my replays with people who aren't on Clubhouse because you can still listen to the replays on your browser. But it's a social audio app where you can hop into a room, a virtual room, and just start talking. So I created a community there. I have they call them houses. I created a house called the Grief Curator House, and I host weekly rooms there where I talk about different aspects of grief, different topics. I did one a couple of weeks ago, specifically about what it is like to live through the first 6 months after a loved one dies. And for that one, no script. Usually I have a bit of a script to follow. That one, I did what we did today. I shot from the heart. I love that. And I just talked because it was something that I had lived and I knew so much about. And one of my community members reached out to me afterwards and said, Michelle, that was so incredible. And I felt better about myself knowing that what I'm living right now, because they're going through, they're within that first 6 months. And they said, I'm so glad that I have you and that you shared so vulnerably, because now I feel like, as awful as this is, I know there's joy still on the other side. And I know that whenever I do feel these moments of joy, that it's okay, that I don't have to feel guilty, that I'm not somehow betraying my person. And that was incredible, because you don't always hear when you've touched someone's life. And so it's wonderful when you do. You're like, oh, this is actually, somebody's actually listening. It is making a difference. Me just holding the space. Yeah. And that was incredible. That was incredible. And for them to even have that realization while they're still in the first 6 months, huge. I didn't have that. It took me a year and more. So yeah, it was really beautiful.
It's and interesting.
Another story.
The fact.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, just interesting in the fact of that. That's all. I was just adding with it. I thought you were taking a pause, so I was just adding as we were going there. So continue sharing, of course.
Another story is one where I had spoken about, this fact that everyone grieves differently, and that anger is a part of that. And so if somebody is reacting, take a pause, take a deep breath, and just listen. Let them spew it out. And then ask yourself, and if it's possible, ask them those questions that I asked. What do you need right now? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need a hug? Or do you need some advice? And another community member had reached out and said, this was about a person in their life who's still living. And I love this because this is also part of what I hope happens. And that is, if you find yourself with someone, a loved one who has not passed away yet, now is the time to make changes to yourself. Because again, like you said, Adam, you can't change somebody else. You can only change yourself. But you can do certain things in your life that can make it a little bit easier. One of my dreams or goals is that you have less regret when it's your turn. Because I thought that I would have no regret. I moved back in with my parents to take care of things because they couldn't handle stuff anymore. And I thought, well, this is great. I'm not going to have any regret because I'm here. I'm physically here.
Yeah.
But mentally and psychologically, I wasn't. And emotionally, I wasn't present. So I still had a lot of regret. And I think everybody's going to have some regrets, but my hope is that by sharing with you, by being vulnerable, I can mitigate some of those regrets when it's your turn. And for this person, I think I did, at least a couple of them. And she reached out and said, yeah, I realize now that what this person is going through and the way that they act is because of their grief. That is not healthy, is not being handled in a healthy way. So yeah, there definitely are transformations happening, and it's beautiful and humbling to witness. And as I'm sure you have experienced in your line as well.
Very much so. It's just part of the journey. And and for the audience, again, on every single one of these episodes with Lulu, with Dea, with Jasmine, now with Michelle, we all align on this. None of us got involved in this for any other reason than this is genuinely something that is a innate inner calling. We're not doing this for anything else other than the fact that we know that our soul's purpose is somehow driving us towards this, that if we wouldn't do this, we'd be driven back to doing this somehow. This is where our hearts are. This is where our souls dwell. I know this inside of this wonderful woman, Michelle, that's on the show today. I've had the conversations and you've heard the episodes and the talks that I've had with everyone else. We're authentically being our vulnerable, transparent selves. We're doing our absolute best to be there for others and hold space for them in whatever their journey is. The recognition can come. It's great. At the same time, the thing of it is that we're doing this because this is what we believe in. And we know it because we've been there. We've walked over the fire coals. We've stepped on the broken glass. We've had our lives flipped upside down. We were out in the ocean and we were capsized and we had to find the scraps found on the shore like a castaway and create a raft with Wilson and figure out how to get through this thing again. Right? Like, and Wilson represents the inner dialogue that we all have with one another. Like, that's where we really thrive and survive, is this inner conversation piece that's ourselves that we take with us on this journey. And I think one of the most powerful things that you mentioned as well, just in the sharing that you just did a second ago, is the fact of when we allow individuals to have a safe space. Taking a step back with that. What that really means in a socio-economical, cultural kind of way. In the Western world, We literally are born into a thought process of asking for two things, either permission or forgiveness.
Mm.
So what Michelle is conveying is that when literally we hold space in a safe way for others, we're giving them permission. Because otherwise, when we cry, when we grieve, when we feel bad, in our way in which our world has gone, we are then made to feel bad for being the one that feels bad in front of others. So then we're asking for forgiveness when we feel bad versus being heard, which would allow us to heal and move forward. So what Michelle is saying is absolutely life-changing. It could be in a relationship, it could be in a breakup, it could be, and again, all this wisdom with anyone that we are ever chatting with here on this show and in any part of your life, it is applicable to everything. If you have a situation in your love life, if you have a situation with a grieving situation, holding space for someone else and learning to do the act of listening, like Michelle just said, what do you need? And ask the loving questions can revolutionize your love life, your friendships with your inner circle, your love life there in that regard, your parental, relationships that we're all working on. None of us are perfect, and none of our parents are perfect. They're perfectly imperfect. So this is really genuinely not just life changing. It can be life changing because of the way in which that language changes the thoughts of how we deal with things from an internal toolkit way. That if we now know that it's possible and capable, hence the reason why I'm asking Michelle to share some of these moments of the actual transition into the transformation process of the success of the healing and the grieving and getting on the other part. Sometimes that's all we need also. You just need to see that someone finished the marathon to now know that you can do it too, right? Someone was running the mile at 4 minutes and now they're breaking records on that 4 minute mile all the time. It's just something, as soon as someone else has done it, they see that it's possible. It makes you feel comfortable and gives you permission to maybe think, I can do that too, right? So thank you again for always sharing. There's always so many nuggets that are in what you do share that just transpire and just transpose onto different layers of healing for everyone that could be possibly listening at whatever layer that they're at right now. We're coming up to possibly the end of the show in the next 25 or so minutes. I like at this particular point in time to just kind of open it up. I've done this for everybody else, and I will continue to do so. Hold me accountable, audience. Leave it down in the comments down below. And also comment and share what you absolutely love about Michelle here. She's amazing, and we're grateful to have you here. Hopefully we have you again in the future. But I want to open it up, and you can take the show topic wherever you'd like to go for the next however long. So the forum is now completely yours. No question, just completely yours as an esteemed guest.
Well, I'm going to go with my intuition because something has been pinging it for the last, 15 minutes. And I want to turn it around to you, Adam, because something is telling me that I need to hold space for you.
Quite true. In a capacity of loss.
If you are comfortable doing that.
Absolutely.
But that's what my intuition says.
I think the family and the community that we've created here knows. Many of them know the journey that I've been on, and a lot of what you've been sharing has just touched me today. I was raised by a single father, and he is my world. And just having the opportunity to understand that you went through what you've gone through and how much he's meant to you, and that the missing and the depth of the feelings that you've had and the beauty that you've been able to share in the process of the toolkit that now you've provided for me. So not only has this been beneficial, absolutely, for this incredible audience today, I'm humbled. Of course, I knew that today was going to be a great conversation. And I think Dr. Phil is supposed to make the guest cry, but now you're going to get Dr. Phil to cry. So that's great. Merci. You're touching me on my heart. And it's a huge
Mm.
takeaway for me in the humblest sense of understanding that there is a way to see the processes of the frustrations that might have been lacks or limitations or
Mm.
difficulties in a way in which is absolutely the encapsulation, though, of the imperfectly perfect in that regard. And throughout my journey, I have lost, having been raised by a single father, lost my mother a long time ago. There's a whole part of my life that is a piece of that, and a lot of what you've said today has resonated with me about the fact of just the choices that are made in life. My mother was a very interesting character in my life's story. Talk about a rough sketch to final draft. And my father painted himself into my world in quite the heroic stance and saved me from a lot of situations that were brewing at that particular time in my life. And we literally changed countries and came to here to start over brand new, just the two of us. And it's been so for the past, since I was 9 years old in my life. So he is my world, and everything that you have shared with us today about the connection and the love that you have for your father has just, it's been hitting me. If you get a chance to watch this back again, as we have this now posted up there, you'll see, I think, a flush of emotions on my face a few different times. So yeah, leave me a comment down below if you guys caught it before I mentioned this. But it's been a genuine joy having this conversation with you today. It's been, I would say, mood altering and life changing in many ways, and I love you for it.
I am here to hold space. And I'm sending you so much love, and your father so much love. What a beautiful, beautiful thing to have. Oh, that has just really again touched me in return. So just wrapping the two of you in this cocoon of love and light and peace. So yeah. Mm, mm.
We talked about this, and I'm happy to share this vulnerability with the audience. This was going to be a good conversation today. We knew it. We knew it in advance.
And it's okay. It's okay to feel these emotions. I'm a sympathetic crier, so you can probably tell that I'm also crying. And that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to let that happen. There's still a part of me that's like, oh, I can't do that. And it's like, no, that's what this is about. It's about
Yeah.
being vulnerable to show you, the listener, both of our beautiful communities, that it's okay. This is natural. This is normal. This is simply human. This is what we do. I did a room for my community where I talked about, and actually the question, the title of it was, is it weak to cry? And of course the answer is no. No, it's not weak to cry. It takes an incredible amount of strength. And crying this is the body saying, oh, we need to cleanse. We need to cleanse some emotions out of the body. We're not just a body and we're not just a mind. We're both. And tears are beautiful. They're a beautiful release. Just allow that to happen. Allow that to happen.
Everything. It's the tea kettle has to let the steam out. It truly is. Looking at it from an organic biological sense. Pain is released by screaming and shouting, and inward pain, soulful pain, emotional pain, which is literally part of the endocrine system in the emotional body. There really is legitimately
Yes.
nervous centers inside the heart,
Yes.
the Abdullah
Yes.
Oblongata inside the brain, and the hemispheres in the right and left that literally are emotional receptors. Its communication of its release is through the tear ducts. It's just the way the body
Yeah.
was biologically created. There's nothing unnatural about it. I mean, if we want to like get into the idea of like trust the science behind it or trust the actual naturalness, like is crying natural? Yes. It's, all animals weep, dogs cry, kitty cats cry. Like we've seen this, so I think it's a
Yes.
beautiful thing, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I've I've had the benefit of being raised by the man that
Mm.
I'm speaking about with my father. Perfect by no means, but at the same time,
Yeah.
he raised me to understand from a young age that having the head and heart connection was a thing that was very important in this life. If anything, with having had a father who is, we're European, we're from France, and we're very much the lovers
Mhm.
of life. We're, French are poetic, romantic, and all those other kind of things. And my father embodies
Mm.
that head and heart. He's a good man. He has a great heart. He has a good soul. And he's never been
Mm.
shy to be able
Mm.
to share that kind of thing. And he shared that with me from a very young age. And then having been with
Mm.
only my father since I was very, very young, I had to actually genuinely be there for him in ways in which that most of the individuals don't understand when you have a
Mm.
single parent. That
Mm.
when someone's upset, you have to learn to be aware of their awareness to be there for them. Dad maybe
Mm.
wasn't the one to mention the fact that he was feeling a certain way, but I would
Mm.
come and sit down with him and be with him and start the
Mm.
conversation and change the topic to something to make him laugh or be there with him in a way. And as I grew up and got older and my language changed and my awareness and my toolkit expanded, I was able to dive in with questions about what it is that you're going through. Um,
Mm.
Tell me more about that. What are you feeling? Like, well, how does that make you feel? And are you still holding on to that
Mm.
from the past? And my father and I
Mm.
went through a lot of nightmares through the
Mm.
situation with my mother and my grandmother and grandmother, situations with my mother and my grandmother back and forth, that whole entire dichotomy, that was never any happiness. And then my grandfather and my grandmother kind of
Mhm.
exiled us from our family. And my father never had a chance to talk to anybody about this. So I grew up
Mm.
and ended up being there with him and for him in ways that nobody
Mm.
ever really else was. And I saw such healing take place and a let go of that pain that he had been carrying for so many years. And it, if anything else, throughout the rest of my professional career, right, taking 10 steps back, like, how did I get here? We're kind of going over this together, and I'm sharing now with you also as we're getting to connect more. We're having another episode, by the way, and leave me down, comment down below. We want her back. Yes, yes, demand it, and she'll come back. We have more to talk about, I promise. That in my professional career, I felt that I was being kind of suffocated from what I really wanted to do. I was in
Mm.
consultation. I was a consultant in the corporate world in
Mm.
many different mediums. I don't want to have to get into that too much, but I realized that I really liked being with people. I was taken aback by the fact of, yeah, I do want to do this, right? Like I do genuinely like being with people, and I didn't realize what capacity that I wanted to be there with them. And as I looked back into the history of my life, as I circle back all the way to the step by step by step, I looked at it like I've been there for my father ever since I was a child. I've been doing this since day one. Like, this is absolutely who I am. If there ever was a calling that was carved out for me by the universe before I even knew it, the universe has been winking out of the corner of its eye at me this entire time. Like, this is your calling. This is what you're meant for. We gave you all these rough life experiences to beat you up, to beat you down, to transform you, to reforge you, to, you know, take the coal and turn it into a diamond through incredible pressure, because we want you to do this coaching thing. So you're going to go do this, Adam. So, um, yeah. And it's just all of what you've shared today is just, we have so many alignments and synchronicities. It is now completely clear to me why I was drawn to finding you on Instagram. So anyways, taking a step back, and if anyone else wants to go look you up now and in the future, trust me, you will find the love and the healing in this woman's words and in her messages. And by the time that maybe you hear this, a year from now, you'll be able to go get her book. So um, there you go. Because once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. So who knows when we'll
Right.
find you 10 years from now or today. That's right. So
Uh,
yeah, just holding love for you. Just holding love for you. So
mm.
closing thoughts though. We're coming up towards the top of our last bit here. Anything else to share?
Yeah. Listening to you talk about your dad, and of course, how I shared about my dad, I just want everyone listening to us today to know something very important. Both Adam and I have been blessed with amazing fathers, perfectly imperfect, and I love that you say that.
Yeah.
They have shaped us into who we are today. Huge, huge, of course. And I mentioned intergenerational trauma as well. However, do not discount what both Adam and I have done for ourselves, the self-healing that we've done, how we've educated ourselves on for me on grief, and for Adam on relationships and psychology and things like that. We've done a lot of work, and we ourselves can't discount our own role in our healing. And I don't want anyone listening today to think that if they did not have that type of parental shaping, or if their parental shaping was very different and was unhealthy, don't let that stop you. You are the master of your healing. And this is why earlier I said that a great therapist or coach is not going to come and tell you you must do X, Y, and Z and you'll be healed and blah, blah. No, they are there. We are here as a guide. Think of any great fantasy story. A guide appears, and that is what they do. They show you have to go in this direction, but you are the one who finds the path, and you are the one who walks it. I want to give you such encouragement, and again, so much love and hope that whatever you are feeling right now, whatever you're dealing with right now, no matter how bad it is, how tough it is, Adam and I have been through some things, and we've transformed, and we've healed, and we have gotten beyond that enough to meet the next challenge, because there's always going to be challenges. The strength and the love and the peace lie within you. It lies within each of us. So it's going to be okay, even if it isn't right now. I believe in you. Even having not met you, I know that you are here for a beautiful reason, even if you don't know what it is right now. And you are here in this time for a reason. We are so lucky to be alive today, when we have so much knowledge about the brain and about the effects of trauma on the brain and psychology, and the ability to do just what Adam and I are doing right now, speaking across the country. We're not even in the same studio. We're not even in the same state. We are in the same country. Yay. But,
Yay.
we have this amazing ability to connect with our community, no matter where we are. So even if you are in a desert, a psychological desert, an emotional desert, we're here, and your community is out there, ready to love you. Thank you so much, Adam, for having me here. It was such a beautiful, safe experience. Thank you for doing that. You are an incredible coach, and an incredible person. And the reason I said yes is because I recognize that. I recognized what an amazing heart you have. And just amazing content that you produce and the things that you share so vulnerably. Sometimes I watch your videos on Instagram and I think, oh my God, is he like looking in my head? Does he know that I needed to hear this today? Uh, and that's why it's so important that each of us follow that intuition, follow your heart. Like I just did when I said, my intuition is saying I need to hold space for Adam right now. Do it. Somebody needs to hear. Somebody needs the love that you have to give. That's why we're here, to make the world a more loving and safe space, even if it's just within our community, even if that community is really small. That's where you begin. You begin here. So thank you, Adam, for having me on. And I would dearly love to come back whenever you would like to have me.
Merci beaucoup. Amen to that. I have nothing else to add. I'm just going to let that sit there in the beautiful, loving space that it is. And I'm just going to go through the routine of closing out the episode lovingly. And for everyone who got a chance to benefit from today's conversation, we love you and we thank you. As Michelle said, we are holding space for you. We welcome you to find us on all of our social medias. There's a website. There's an Instagram for Michelle. Those links will be down below. We have an Instagram for my page. That link will be down below. There is a Patreon account now, and we also have merch for the RSF2FD Rough Sketch of Final Draft, so take a look. Support us where you can. We love you. We're growing. Thank you for all the amazing downloads. The videos from before the other episodes are all over 100 views. So love you. Like and subscribe. I have to learn to say that now. And we love you. And we thank you so much. So have an excellent rest of your day, everybody. Cheers.